Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You got the timer set to 59:59?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Flip the silver switch. Put the
Yes.
clapper in front of your face. When you hit the clapper, you're on the air.
Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future. Thanks to Richard Wicca, our friend and producer. Thanks, Richard. And we're also very grateful to our friends at Buffalo State, Buff State College, and WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station, 91.3 FM. Thank you, Buff State. And while we're giving thanks, I want to remember that we are, first of all, on stolen Haudenosaunee land. And as our indigenous brothers and sisters have reminded us too, gratitude is the attitude. So that's why they always start off with a Ganonyo or Thanksgiving, where they remember how grateful they are to the people who are gathered and made the gathering possible, and to Mother Earth, to all of the creatures, the swimming four-leggeds and flying creatures, and all of the different elements that all make this beautiful creation, and that we should remember to behave as originally instructed so that life can continue in this creation. And so when I say that, then at the end I would say Nyahweh, and then everyone would say Nyo.
And God. And I just want to point that out. You just shot God out.
And
yes.
for the creator, absolutely. The creator, very, very critical. Thank you. I'm going to always be sure to remember the creator.
The creator,
absolutely. Yeah, the great mystery, the creator. So thank you. So Nyahweh and Nyo.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I'm very grateful, too, that we have wonderful guests on the show. That is, both of them are previous friends of the show, and just friends and wonderful sheroes in our activist community. So I guess first we'll just go around counterclockwise. So Jalonda Hill, who is both the coordinator and is that what your role is called at Fair Fines and Fees Coalition?
Yes, I'm the co-founder and coordinator of the Fair Fines and Fees Coalition.
And of course, the executive director at Colored Girls Bike too.
Yes, and currently I'm the president and founder of Colored Girls Bike 2, soon to be transitioning into the executive director.
Oh, okay. Right. Good. So thank you for coming, Jalonda. And then Shyana Broughton.
Yes.
And Shyana is also with Colored Girls Bike 2, is on the board.
Yes.
Is a doula, and just a wonderful friend of the show and a friend of the Wakanda Alliance that we were just talking about. Wait till we get, into our next show. We'll be talking about
it. Oh, absolutely.
Too. So anyway, so thank you so much for coming. And actually, she's brought two of her children with her that I think we could just briefly introduce. If you want to come on screen with your mom. Oh, I think you can see Noah.
Yeah,
here.
You might be able to see Noah.
If you move back the way you were, you could see Noah. Yep.
Noah.
Yep, there he is behind you. And then here, if you move your head up a little.
You want to get in the camera?
You can say hi.
Come with me, baby. You say hello.
So why don't you just say
my baby love. You say hi. Come on down. That's my daughter.
Right.
Naila. And then we have Noah
behind us.
So deep.
So they're both deep in their activities, but thank you. And it's important to them, too, I think, what we're talking about. Because we're talking about things that affect all of us, which is just streets, mobility, justice, and Colored Girls Bike 2, and and safety, especially in terms of traffic enforcement, which means we're going to talk about police and traffic enforcement. So we've got lots to talk about. But before we even start, I want us to do one more thing, which is the values that we want to uphold in this conversation, and especially in these issues as we talk about them. So I'm going to ask Jalonda if you want to mention a value that you want to uphold, and then Shyana too.
Oh, a value that I want to uphold, I would say is,
You can mention more than one. It's not like it's your
okay,
only value.
maybe I would say self-love,
Sure. Yes.
accountability, and I'm just thinking off the top, reparations.
Sure. Yep. Yep.
Is
We
that a
need
value?
to repair.
Is that
Well,
kind of-
that
is a
can be
value
a
for
value.
sure. Absolutely.
That is a value. Absolutely, it's a value because repairing. Reparations are about repairing the damage done.
Yeah.
Right. So that is definitely a value.
Oh, and community. So I have
Sure,
4: community, reparations, self-love, and accountability.
Sure. Those are all so critical. And Shyana?
Well, my number one reason for pretty much everything that I do is for my children.
Right. Of course.
Safety for my kids. Years from now, when we look at this whole thing, we want to say that we started something that 10 years from now, my kids will be perfectly okay with traveling by bike if they choose in the streets, anywhere. Doesn't matter that they're chocolate or not.
Right.
I think that that's probably like number one for me. But then, of course, community, because I'm fighting so hard for everyone to be able to just exist by themselves without having to explain anything. Get on the bike because you want to.
Right. Right.
Walk the streets because you want to. Do what you want to do because it doesn't really matter what color you are.
Right.
We want safety.
Absolutely.
We want to just be.
Right. So a lot of times, actually, especially in social work, I've heard people say safety first. Safety first. So that's one thing that we're going to talk about. And that is going to really permeate our conversation. So I'm going to say safety really comes out of love and truth. So that love, because we love each other, we want people to be safe. And truth means let's talk about what's really going on.
Aha.
Right? And I also want to mention, because I know we're going to talk about it, it's definitely a value of mobility justice. And I know I've mentioned before, sometimes in this setting, I love to remember my sister who was in a wheelchair, and I was just reading about mobility justice, just how much we don't have mobility justice, and that means for disabled, for low income, we know people who can't afford to have a car are out of luck in Buffalo. Because if you're depending on that public transportation system, I will say after trying it for 5 months myself, it is brutal.
It is.
So anyway, so those are plenty of values, and I know we're all very value driven here. So we'll just keep right on with that. So moving from that into, I like to invite you really to sort of start where you want to start. Basically, we're going to talk about the Just Streets campaign, which is very related to the Fair Fines and Fees Coalition, which is very related to one of the key component parts, Colored Girls Bike Too.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with which is a new and thriving, wonderful new organization. So
Yeah. So Color Girls Bike 2 has been around since 2017, very informally. And we officially became a non-for-profit in 2021. We are a small organization of myself and 2 other board members, Shyana Broughton, who is also the founder and executive director of Our Mommy Village, her own organization.
Oh, right.
So shout out to Our Mommy Village. And
I
then,
think that's up there.
and then the other board member is Chantel Douglas, who is the founder of Urban Holistic and Wellness, which is a really dope organization and business. And so it's us. And our goal is really simple. It's how do we heal our community and bring mobility justice to the city of Buffalo by way of bicycle, and making that, I guess, mission accessible and relatable and kind of understandable to our community. So it's less jargony. and it actually, I guess, has more power connected to it. So they're not just like words that we're saying, but it actually means something to like our community. So I think that's our mission, and that's what we strive to do every single month when we put on our events, and when we meet with each other, and when we are like connecting, with our community. So.
So what would you want to add about Colored Girls Bike Too? What made you get involved, or how did it even, maybe I want to ask this, how did it even come about that you created that organization?
So Colored Girls Bike Too was started because there wasn't any intentional spaces for Black women, both cis and trans women, and gender non-binary people to come together around cycling, specifically bike commuting around the city of Buffalo to access like essential places. There are organizations with similar missions, but nothing that had a mission like what CGBT has, and it wasn't also in Buffalo. So that's how it started, and it's kind of been evolving ever since.
Well, I want to really hand it to you, both of you, for their your creativity and all the groundbreaking thinking that I've already seen with Colored Girls Bike Too, and also with the Fair Fines and Fees Coalition and all the associated campaigns, which means both Just Streets and Mobility Justice, and how important they are. So people, may or may not understand how important they are, but, if you're not affected by it, you may think it's, people may not understand. And yet, I think, when I think of, sometimes I say the real victory, everybody wins, right? And for those things, mobility, justice, and Just Streets, we all win. Because one of the things we know that, there's so much damage being done around our auto-centric, hyperactive, crazy speeding, racing around that happens in our streets and our unsafe streets. So we've been talking about unsafe streets in terms of, it can be gun violence, it can be running people over with a car, by accident, or, I guess,
Right. Right.
So, but it's just so related to people's daily lives and safety issues. And we all suffer for that, for
Yes.
accidents, for fatal accidents even, and people getting hit by a car just trying to get across the street.
Yeah, mobility is such, and I want Shyana to add on soon. Mobility is such an important aspect and part of like the Black experience. But just within communities of color generally, and just the human experience. When you think about the Great Migration of Black people who were essentially fleeing the South because there was like acts of terror and violence against them for just existing.
Right.
And then you think about driving while Black, which is a real thing. You think about walking while Black.
Right.
Jogging while Black, and all of these different incidents.
Right.
And from my time doing organizing, I haven't really had the language to really describe what that feels like and what that work should look like, and I feel like that's what Mobility Justice does. And I'll pass it to Shyana to maybe add.
Please.
Well, I want to add just the fact that like my son is turning 17 in a few months. And
Not this one here.
Not this one here.
No.
No, I have an almost 17-year-old, and we're learning how to drive.
Oh,
and
boy.
so, like, he's been on the streets on his bike because that's pretty much our preferred way of getting around.
Sure.
We love the bike,
Right.
but I have literally recently started to get more nervous with him traveling because, for one, the streets are not safe. He wants to be everywhere because he's 17.
Right.
And like even driving a car, like you still have other concerns after that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, so he's a Black kid. He's 5'10", extremely athletic. and a teenager. We should allow him to be a teenager, right?
Right.
But like the reason why my heart is completely in this is because like I want him to be safe. I don't want to feel like I'm stressed out because my child is outside.
Right.
You know, and for me, you know, a lot of these things that we talk about are affecting me in real time.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like my son, you see it on the news that there are people targeting black people for no reason.
Right.
And now I have a young child who is much taller than me, you know, like ready to take on the world in the way that he knows how. And I just want it to be safe for him to go outside, whether he's on the bike or in a car.
True.
So, you know, for me as a black mom, like my heart is 100% invested because you don't bring kids here for them to be afraid.
Right.
You want them to live and enjoy life.
Right.
Because that's what they're here for. So, like, until I have no breath in me, it'll, you know, like as much as I need to, whatever I need to do to, you know, to make sure that they are safe, that's what I'm going to do.
Right.
And if it means me on the bike, me in the car, or me talking, I'm going to make sure my children are safe.
Of course.
So
Of
that's
course.
essentially what mobility justice means to me. You know, they should be able to walk, ride, car, whatever it is that they do, just exist and be black by themselves.
Right.
Without having any concern whatsoever. So that's why I'm here.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? That's why I'm here too. And I don't have, I mean, I'm here for your kids because they're our kids. These are our kids. This is our beloveds that we need to take care of and transform the world the way we need it to be so that people are safe and secure. Human security. Actually, in Peace Jam, the youth did a project and they called it, they get, you know, there are like 10 different topics. Right now, our Peace Jam group is working on ending racism and hate. So that's Thursdays, not tomorrow, or not Thursday the 14th, but every other Thursday until mid-May. But anyway, another year, the Global Call to Action project that was selected by that group of youth was human security, and they defined it completely different from the way that, you know, that the police say, or the Homeland Security. That's not about security. That's actually ramping up the violence, and that's what we've seen. The violence begets violence, and all this, you know, it's expecting the worst and creating the worst that has, you know, I think we're going to get into this with the police and traffic.
Super intentional too.
Traffic enforcement. Police and traffic enforcement.
Right.
So I don't know if we want to go in there first. I think
We can.
We could.
okay. So
I'm ready.
So,
Yeah.
I'll first want to say, but this is why when Shyana was talking about like riding the bike and why she rides her bike, because it's an act of like protest. I do want to say that, like, literally black women being on their bikes and taking up space in the streets to go wherever they need to go unapologetically is an act of protest. So I do want to shout that out. And, you know, because that's important. So as far as mobility justice, basically how we kind of do that work is we do it through the Fair Fines and Fees Coalition, which is separate but still connected to like what Color Girls Bike 2's overall mission is, which is liberation, and how we get there is through healing and mobility justice, which is our mission. And obviously there's so many different ways to look at liberation and how you get there, but that's what specifically our mission focuses on. And so within the Fair Fines and Fees Coalition, we've had one campaign where we kind of started the coalition around, which was around like extraction and how fines and fees disproportionately impact and burden people of color more than they do others, whether it's traffic tickets, whether it's parking tickets. And within our first campaign, we focused heavily on how traffic tickets were being disproportionately issued to black and brown people. And it really opened up this whole conversation around not only our black people and black and brown people being over ticketed for really minor traffic infractions, but they're also being bullied, they're also being brutalized, they're often and sometimes being killed at traffic stops. And
Right.
we, thank God, won our first campaign with removing these excessive fees, as you know, the 13
Right.
fees campaign.
Yes, we love to brag on that.
Yes. And then after that, when we went into the whole just streets, like, okay, so how can we reinvest into our streets so that we're no longer relying on fines to keep our streets safe? And then we're also no longer relying on police. So that's where the whole Just Streets kind of concept came from, is like, how can black and brown people travel without being extracted from, without being bullied or brutalized by the police? And that's the whole concept around, yes, Noah, exactly. That's the whole concept around Just Streets. And one of the things that the Just Streets Not Enforcement campaign was about, one of them, how we got there was removing the speed cameras, as you know. And we were successful with that campaign. And the other aspect of the campaign was related to removing police from traffic enforcement.
Right.
And so, as you know, the cameras came down.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was
Another big win.
a result of, people coming together. Because, in community organizing, I want to stress the value of community relationships, in strategy, and also taking care of yourself. And I think that's what makes the coalition work, is we try to check in on one another. And I do think it's a bit of that, like, I want to say family element there, because we're always like in connection with each other, and it can be overwhelming. But I think that what's cool about the coalition is that we always come back to our values, and we understand like how important the work that we're doing is. And I think that's what keeps people coming back to the work. So the cameras we got rid of the cameras, and now we're moving into this area in the campaign where we are drafting a policy to get Buffalo police out of enforcing traffic laws in the city of Buffalo.
Right.
And this is a really powerful campaign, and it actually can change and just change the way we think about safety, redefining safety. And also, I think it will allow our communities to take our streets back. So that's what I'll say about that campaign. Shyana isn't a part of the Fair Fines and Fees Coalition, but she's a board member of Color Girls Fight too. So I'm going to let her speak about the topic of traffic enforcement, because
I'll be honest, because of how things were, like, I was targeted. I will say, a couple of years ago, I was targeted in Amherst and issued a ticket that was just, but I know that they were trailing me from way behind.
Right.
And they issued me a ticket that was so high that I was just like, oh my God. So I ended up coming off the road so that I could pay it, honestly.
Right.
Because I knew that it was it was ridiculous. So, I mean, but my thing is, as many people as I watched go into this same area and they just let them by, they literally watched me and my family, to the point where I was just like, I'm not driving right now. And so, and that was a healing space for me, because I'm like, it was ridiculous, and I mean, I paid the ticket, but I really, honestly, I was just like, I know that I was targeted.
Right.
And it made me feel awful, because I'm like, watching my kids, we're waiting to go into somewhere fun, and they decide to pull us over because we're in Amherst. And I'm just like, I would much rather just stay in my own backyard, which was Buffalo. So, I mean, I ended up traveling by bike for a long time, just because of the trauma of a cop call. Like, I am not a troublemaker.
Right.
And it made me feel like, there was an issue with me. And even though it was necessary for them to give me the ticket, there was something wrong with my registration or something like that. It was just very targeted. You know what I mean? Because the day that I
but that's
remember,
a minor traffic infraction.
it was very, very, very minor. And for me, they made it a big to-do because it was an event that I was driving to. And so I watched all of these people go in, and I watched them trail me.
Right.
So, my family was with me,
Right,
so
right,
everybody
right. That
was
makes it
pulled into
terrible.
this thing, and I was terrified because I'm
Right.
like, I don't do enough to have any involvement with police at all. You know what I
Right,
mean? So
right.
they literally watched me. So because of that, I have a real fear that I'm literally trying to like subside and let go of now that I have a new driver. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I don't want them messing around with him
No, of course.
just because he's black. And
Well,
so
and it's potentially deadly. It's
Right.
potentially deadly, and if
not
people don't
necessary.
understand-
My child is
Right.
a child. You know what I mean?
Right,
And
right.
I'll be honest. There was when Trayvon Martin was killed.
Right.
I took my entire family down there to the protest. My
Uh-huh.
son was 6, and you could look if you'd like, but my child looks exactly like Trayvon Martin. And because of that, it touched us so deeply because my daughter was also in a carrier. This is before my son was even here. So
Right,
these fights was something that happened way before. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now that I've experienced some of these things myself, and now having a child that is almost of age to be on his own, this is why it means so much to me, because I dragged him down there when there was hardly anybody there because of how I felt about it.
Right.
Now that my son is the exact same age as Trayvon Martin, and I'm realizing he's 5'10",
Right.
150 pounds, could be a threat to somebody,
Well,
and he's not.
no. Right.
But we know
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
But because of his skin color,
Because
they'll
of
think that.
racism.
And
Right.
it's ridiculous. So I
Right.
mean, like for me, it has a lot more to do with I want to feel safe, but I also want my children to feel safe more than anything.
Right. Of
They
course.
didn't ask to be here, and I want them to enjoy life's splendor without having to explain to anybody
Right.
that this is owed to me.
Right.
Like this is rightfully mine.
Right.
So that's my whole mission, is to make sure that all kids, not just mine, all of the children of Buffalo, New York and beyond feel
Right.
safe traveling the streets. It just doesn't make any sense not to feel safe in your own place.
Right.
And I want to add that Shyana is a part of the coalition, actually.
Oh, well,
she's not, she's
Of
not
course she
necessarily,
is.
but yeah, because I
Right.
think the entire community really is a part of the coalition, even though they're not necessarily, at the
Well-
meetings in the physical, but like we exist because of the community. We exist
Right.
because of experiences like Shayna's, right?
Well, actually-
so I wanted to clarify
I would
that.
even say because Colored Girls Bike Too is such a key component of the coalition.
Yes.
Is a key, and in fact the key through you, because you are really the coordinator of the whole thing. So all of us who are in the steering committee, right, are all working with you. But you've been doing the taking the heaviest load by far, and that's why
Right.
when you talk about self-love and self-care, I mean, that's part of it, is because when you take on leadership, and it is such, there is
Oh
this
my God, that's a whole nother conversation.
this mountain and ocean of work to do, right? You have to pace yourself, and I know, and because I've done a very poor job of doing that, very poor.
Same.
And so what happens, well, except that I'm a lot older than you, and so I'm going to say it comes to bite you in the end. So
Okay, thank you for the jewels.
We go
Yeah,
we gonna
so
take a break.
just-
Is what we're gonna do.
you
Yeah.
it's important. It's an important part, because if we're about nonviolence, we have to not do violence to ourselves
Right.
by just pushing all the time. So anyway, but that's a little side point. But and so anyway, I know that you're part of it, and it's part of those campaigns. So the steering committee of Fair Fines, No Fees is one thing. It's just one thing. That has all these other arms and connections, and is deeply connected to all these
And
other
that's the beauty of
groups and
organizing,
people.
is making
Yeah.
those connections. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So I want to dig in a little further about police and traffic enforcement, because I want to say I know we're not ready to quite share all of the research that's been done, but there's a lot of research that's been done where people see over and over again, well, one, they've seen the extractive nature of some of the stops, which dates back to Ferguson. They're saying, oh, in Ferguson, how all of a sudden they noticed that it was really on the backs of the black people getting tickets that the whole town was running their government.
Jesus.
So I mean, it was
like that. Yeah.
Well, that's what it
Crazy.
was, and so that's where people were like, "Oh, this is going on." Well, so then when we had the Buffalo Traffic Violations Bureau was created, or whatever, is that what it's called?
The Buffalo Traffic Violations Agency. Yeah.
Agency. When that was, then it was just like, oh, cha-ching.
Right.
And there was that, and it was still ongoing court case.
Yeah.
About the traffic stops, and not just traffic stops, but the you know what I'm talking about, the checkpoints.
The checkpoints, yeah.
The checkpoints.
So shout out to Black Love Resisting the Rest.
Yes. Shout out. Amen.
Natasha
Shout
Soto,
out, for
Keisha
sure.
Redden,
Felicia.
and Felicia Brown.
Right. Felicia, yeah.
And all the other folks that played a role in getting that lawsuit going.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and the organizations and the lawyers and everything that are
Right.
keeping that lawsuit alive.
Well, we did a little jot in there too, especially Heron Simmons. And,
Yeah.
it's part of the same whole work. So that just, one thing led to another. So that led to the working to get and you, as you so,
Right.
nicely laid out that timeline. So now we're at the stage where we want to talk about police and traffic enforcement and shine a light on some of the research that says how inappropriate and unhelpful that is, because it is just a window into all kinds of problems. It's a window into, racist traffic stops. It's a window into, that fear that is the racist criminalization of black people that makes the police more afraid, that makes them shoot, which is no excuse. It's a reality. The fight, flight, freeze are up because
the
of
police's of scariness.
Well, you may not care,
Because they
but
should not be in that role.
no, right.
Yeah.
But whether you care or not, I'm just talking about how a thing happens.
No, absolutely.
If you see it happen
Yes.
again and again, then we have to change it because it's not working. And in fact, that's one of the things that we were talking about is all the creative solutions that we came up with. But before we get there, I want to, if you would talk a little bit about the research that says just how ineffective that is.
Right. So the coalition, through really powerful people like Karina Teft, Colleen Christich, everybody just within the coalition.
Sure.
And myself, like we put together a lot of research over the years to really highlight just how problematic having police enforce traffic safety laws, how dangerous it is for our communities. So we basically have like these 5 recommendations for the city of Buffalo with this campaign. The first one is removing police from traffic enforcement and replacing them with unarmed civilian traffic safety officers. And then the second recommendation that we have is investing in traffic calming infrastructure and then other related infrastructure to create just streets. So that way we don't have to rely on the police. And then the third one is investing in public education about parking and traffic incentives that the city of Buffalo has. So for example, the city of Buffalo has something called the Buffalo Motor Assistance Program. And it's basically a program that came out of, the reforms in 2020 when there was like the uprisings. And basically it provides assistance for people who can't afford the traffic tickets. Now, while that's great, a lot of people don't know about it.
Right.
So if a lot of people don't know about it, how much can it help the people?
It's right.
So that's one of our other recommendations. And then the other one is the city needs to compensate, Buffalonians for past harm. So basically reparations. Like the city needs to refund everybody that got speed camera tickets.
Right.
Because we found that they were unjust. The city needs to really, also through the lawsuit, the Black Love Resistant Arrest lawsuit and the checkpoints, needs to pay people back for all of that money they collected through the checkpoint. So
Right.
going back to my value earlier about reparations, this is what that recommendation really represents. And then the final one is reforming the towing and impounding system in the city of Buffalo. The way it's structured now, it's also very biased. If you look at some of the data, and even though there's more research that needs to be done, if Black people are disproportionately getting tickets, then you could potentially make a correlation and kind of say that they're more than likely also being targeted for their cars being towed and impounded as well.
Sure.
And then they're also more likely the ones that can't get their cars out of the impound because they can't afford to pay those past parking tickets to
Right.
get their cars.
That's
Right.
So what happens to their cars? They get auctioned off, right?
Right.
And then,
Cha-ching.
exactly. And it's just cycle of just
Extractive.
keeping Black people deeper and deeper into the cycle of poverty and debt.
Right.
Which is then you get into the social determinants of health, Pastor George Nicholas and the
Right.
African American health, right? Because it's like this psychological aspect to all of this.
Right.
So I don't want to get too off topic, but those are recommendations for this campaign. And and we've done a lot of research that's connected to all of that. And I think our biggest obstacle is how do we get these out there without overwhelming the people? How do we make this make sense to the people? And do the people agree?
Well, I think
Yeah.
part of the question about agreeing goes back to more some of the research that was done on just how ineffective having police in traffic enforcement is when their job is really fighting crime, which isn't traffic enforcement. Which isn't, I mean, actually, it blew my mind to read the actual numbers in our fact sheet, that are just how much, that in such a small percentage of, what was it? They said in stop and frisk, for example, that a very small percentage of the stop and frisk resulted in any kind of it's just a terrorizing of the community.
Yeah, the data. You can add.
I was just going to say
Please do.
that just how we can research,
Right.
like what the numbers are, the research can be on both sides. So you got people looking at this is what we're looking at on the inner city. We can target them because that's what we know there's going to be an issue. You know what I mean? Like if you give tickets to the inner city, it's a jackpot pretty much. It's very, very intentional. You know what I mean? Because traffic violations and stuff is not nearly what the numbers are in the inner city. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's very
Right.
intentional.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, it's clear. It's very clear that it's not going to work
Right.
for the benefit of Black people at all. It's just not.
Right.
So let's just say that.
Right.
Y'all are looking at Black people.
Right. Right.
You're gonna stop and frisk Black people. You're going to pull people over in Black neighborhoods, or predominantly, and then people who are on the outside of being Black, they're just gonna get swept under there because this is what our real target is the inner city Black people. You know what I mean? White folks are gonna get pulled in, but for the most part, we know that the inner city is mostly Black.
And Shyana brings up a really good point, something called, there's this concept around by targeting race, we're also targeting just really issues that impact everybody. I think it's called, it's some term, I can't think of it. But by addressing racial issues first, we can also just address injustices that impact everyone by centering how, for example, poverty impacts Black people.
Right.
We're also addressing poverty and the issues that impact everyone.
Right.
And I forgot the term, but yeah. And so the fact sheet basically shows that police traffic stops do not deter crime. That's one of the things that our fact sheet talks about. And so
Right. That's what
Right.
I was talking about.
So
That's what
Yeah.
we're getting at.
the,
right?
Yeah.
the data basically says there was an example in New York City in 2012 that out of 297,000 stop and frisks conducted, only 2% resulted in a weapon recovery.
2%. Right?
yeah.
For weapons recovery.
Yeah.
Doesn't even say, illegal weapon, but let's just assume that they're all illegal weapons. But 2%. So it just says how arbitrary, and racist and counterproductive. Because if there's one thing that is exacerbating things, it's back to the fear factor, right? So I know we were talking about the police fear factor, and also what about the black fear factor? Because when you've read all these things and you know the history of just so much of injustice and violence, state-sponsored, state-funded, state actors doing violence or letting violence go by, right? How it took how many years to get the anti-lynching law? 250
and
years.
we still don't got reparations.
And we will be here all night if we talk about that.
Right. But so I just want to say back to...
That's what I'm trying to figure
What?
out. Where's our checks at? We still
Right.
don't got reparations.
Right.
No, right.
I think
Listen.
each of us are at least owed $1 million. Even
And
a
some
little bit
land,
more.
honey.
I mean,
And some land.
considering what our ancestors went through, we haven't forgot about that. And I think all of what we're doing, our work, I don't care what it is, policing, housing, it goes back to the fact that we were robbed
Right.
of resources, land, money. Our
Freedom.
Freedom. were
Freedom
and that
to
has
start with.
absolutely freedom. But we know that money and resources is freedom, especially in America. So the fact, and we're the descendants of our ancestors who didn't receive those funds
Right.
in that
Right.
land. And I think that everything we're fighting for now is a result of like not getting that freedom, I guess, in terms of resources and land, for sure. So I do want to point that out. And shout out to Black Lovers of Center Russ, who was doing that work around reparations as
Yes.
Great.
I will say, as this is important for me to say out loud because I'm sitting here on my grandmother's birthday. Today is my grandmother's birthday, and the work that I do is based on her life and
Right.
how she was robbed of pretty much every freedom she could have, from her own medical coverage all the way down to like even how she mothered. And for me, it hits home because I realize I'm a direct descendant of someone who should have been treated fairly and wasn't, and she died thinking that she didn't have or couldn't give to her family. So I'm a descendant, which means I want to live her wildest dream. Tell me, where's my money?
Right.
Okay, because these kids right here, they deserve more because she died thinking she didn't have anything. They owe her everything. You know what I mean? The things that they did and how they treated her and the things that they even instilled in her just for being black, this is why I'm sitting here. You know, my grandmother died thinking that she wasn't much, but I'm sitting here on her birthday to let her know, like, and
she's
from
much.
here and from every chance that I get after this, my children deserve better, and we will fight for better because we deserve it.
Absolutely.
And it was so intentional that, okay, now that you know that the intention was to take away our freedoms and our money and our resources, now that we know that that was intentional, like someone sat at a table and said, we don't want you to have nothing, right? They sat there and said, we don't want you to have anything. Now we know that, give me my money. Because it was intentional. So now, as we sit here, we need our resources because we need to show them better. My kids don't need to grow up the same way my kids,
No.
my grandmother did.
Right.
And happy birthday to Grandma Broughton. That's her
Yes.
last
So
name,
she's
right?
Wiseman.
Grandma Wiseman.
Annette Wiseman.
Yes. Happy birthday to her.
Yes.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Blessed birthday to
Did you
her.
want to add anything else?
No, honestly, she's a part of the entire movement. You know,
Right.
like I
Right.
remember the stories she told me, and me and my grandmother were very close. So she sat and told me things that maybe other people in the family didn't know. And because of that, it's like I hold it dear because of the relationship that I had with my grandmother.
Right.
But because I know her wildest dreams, I sat and talked to her about it. I want to live them out for her. You know what I mean? Like, let her be happy knowing that somebody got it, that it stopped with me, that the generational curse ended
Right.
because I decided that it was enough.
Well, one thing I feel like is with all the things that are going on now, which we have existential threats to our very human existence on this planet now, that, of course, nuclear, which has been a chronic existential threat and now is a real existential
Absolutely.
threat since things are going on between us and Russia. And our climate catastrophe is definitely happening already, and that's an existential threat. So while all these changes are needed and happening, and crises are coming, and they are coming, I feel like crisis equal to opportunity, right? That's what the Chinese character for crisis is the same as the character for opportunity. Because in that change, it's like, oh, well, we could do this. We could do it this way. We could change because we have food for people. We have resources for people. We have enough for everyone. If we just didn't have more billionaires than ever before, which we do, and billionaires spending, have so much money to burn that they're burning it up and going into outer space for a lark. I mean, we can do better than this.
Yes.
We can do better than this.
And I think this brings up a good point around how do we ensure that the people who are most impacted by the issues are the most qualified to receive $1 million budgets,
Absolutely.
to obtain $1 million budgets to do the work.
Yes.
And this brings up, and I don't care who it offends, but this brings up, and I don't think it's controversial at all. I think it's facts. The fact that you have so many organizations who led by people who aren't directly impacted by these issues, receiving so much money and resources and space. I mean, a space, Shyana. You imagine what we can do with a space to do the work we're trying to do?
Absolutely.
To do work that sometimes isn't even being done in communities that they're not from, where they can't connect with the people. So then they receive these budgets to get people who can connect with the people. And I think it's just all counterintuitive and it doesn't make sense and it's very confusing. And some people call it the non-for-profit industrial complex, but I just call it just outright just unjust. I also call it and I say that it doesn't work and we need a new model and approach to how we address the issues that impact the people on the ground, and how do we position the people who are most impacted by these issues as leaders and fund them with the resources and everything they need to do the work. We want to do the work. Let us do the work.
Right.
It's not like we don't. So if you know that we want to do the work, how can we change the minds of the foundations? How can we change the mind of city governments at the New York State level, at the local level, to give us the money to do the work? We don't need white saviors. I'm sorry, gotta say it, coming into our community to do this work. And while we appreciate the programs that have been created and some of the work that has been done and the community agendas that have been put together, I do think that Black leaders and Black-led organizations need the resources and the fuel to do this work if we really want to see changes.
Well, I want to say
it's time for a shift. It's time for a change.
I can say,
because we're out here struggling.
I gotta say
and if we're out here struggling, and if we're talking about self-care, people like Shyana, people like Chantel, people like myself, and so many other Black-led leaders, we're struggling. And when we say we're burnt out because we're working with nothing to create these massive changes.
So I just want to say, if I could.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
If I could just say, I think at the Western New York Peace Center, since we are now a Black-led organization, I think I can just chime right in. Because we are a Black-led organization at the Western New York Peace Center.
And shout out to Deidre, who is now the executive director
my
of the
girl.
Western New
I
York
love
Peace
Deidre.
Center.
Right.
But that's just a sliver
Well, and
of the
also, I
changes
mean,
that
well,
need to
it's
happen.
almost ridiculous to mention the Peace Center, except that we are a Black-led organization. But we have been doing the work similarly with a pittance towards the actual work that's being done. So, I mean, when we talk about the imbalances, I think we also want to talk about grassroots versus, large.
Yes,
Small is
thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you,
Small is
Vicki.
beautiful. So something, just because it's bigger, where the big money goes? It goes into God bless them.
Oh, I have
we
to
don't
say
hate them. The Albright Knox or other things
Yeah.
like that. So where it's back to the budget
are they
is
gonna
a
shut this
value
video off?
statement.
Right.
No,
Well, see,
seriously.
I want to say before we get,
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
move from there,
Please.
but, like for me,
Yeah.
being a black mama, right?
Uh-huh.
And also being a founder of something that is kind of grassroots too. You know,
Right.
like I realize that like when
Absolutely.
we do things together, me and Jalonda or me and Shawnee or Jalonda are all together, we're usually the only chocolate faces you see.
Uh-huh.
So if that's the case, then who are they marketing to? If this organization is so big and this is for the community and
Which
everything
one?
else, I
What do you
won't
mean?
shout out their
Oh.
names.
Oh.
But
uh-huh.
for me, it's a big organization that's saying things community-based. Oh, community. But my community didn't hear anything about it.
Well, this is another issue too.
You know what I
so
mean?
we and actually, I think we've gone very far. We have
But it's all connected because
it's
none
all
of this
connected.
can't be done
Oh,
without resources and us being
absolutely.
able to take care of ourselves and to pay our rent and to take care of our children.
There's no question.
You see what I'm saying?
Of course we do. Of course we see what you're saying.
I had
And
to pay for gas just to get here.
if
Or
I
had
could
to
say-
feed myself to ride my bike to get here. You see what I'm saying? I don't want to go on this tangent, but people always think like these things are separate. These are all connected.
Well, I don't think they're.
No, I'm not
separate.
saying you do.
No,
No,
because
no,
I'm
yeah,
going to say that if there's one song we sing at the Western New York Peace Center, it's how everything is connected.
Absolutely.
It comes in every situation. That's why when we have these conversations, in fact, that's one of the things. Everything is connected, and yet it's important to focus on smaller things because when you come in, like we often do, with the whole big picture and like, why
Yeah, true.
are we shoveling money at the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex and everything else when we don't have money for our schools and our health care and our
Speak on it.
and our infrastructure, traffic calming infrastructure and everything else. So all those big things, but then it's also good to focus on the smaller things, like you were saying, but it doesn't mean not the whole picture of peace through justice, right? Of equal those streets, just streets through justice. So we need to really, we just have to be checking out our values at every time. So how can people get we're almost out of time. So
Okay.
how can people get more connected? How can they help? How can they get more involved?
Yeah, so how people can get involved is over the next several months, we're going to be doing a lot of on-the-ground work. So we're going to be launching a survey, getting people's feedback. Okay,
Go ahead,
getting
keep
people's
going.
feedback on whether or not they want to see police removed from traffic enforcement.
And giving them the facts.
And giving them the facts. So we'll
Right.
be launching the fact sheet. We'll be launching our recommendations, and we'll be holding a press conference, letting the community know, like, this is what we're doing behind the scenes, because transparency is important.
Right.
People can get involved by joining the Color Girls Bike 2's Facebook group page. They can get involved by
But
following us on
if-
Facebook.
If
they
it's a colored person.
hold on. And don't say. Oh, hold on. You're not supposed to say colored.
Okay,
but,
sorry.
You're supposed to. People of color,
Person of
right?
color,
So
a person
colored
of
is
color.
in the name.
Right.
So obviously you can say the name, but
Right.
it's not acceptable for like white people to go around and be saying, "Oh, look at those color people right there." I don't think that that's our point. Our point is to reuse and recycle the term and attach it to something of empowerment and positive. And what better way to do that through healing and mobility justice? So I do want to say that. But yes, so you can join the group anyone can join the group.
Anyone can join the group.
Because the
White
point-
people could also
yes,
join
you
the
can
group.
join the group on Facebook.
Okay.
As far as our events, so our healing events, I guess you can say, are catered and focused and centered around Black women, cis and trans, and gender non-binary folks. And then like our mobility justice work, which we like to call like our Green Book work, which is a whole nother thing I won't get into, and what Green Book means, is where we try to involve the entire community. Obviously still centering Black and brown people. So how people can get involved is, so following us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, our page and our group. Color Girls Bike Too. The Fair Fines and Fees Coalition also has its own Facebook page where you can follow that page. Noah, shout out to Noah. And
Yes, Noah.
to see what we're up to, Color Girls Bike 2 will be having an event on Saturday where we'll be, and that event is specific to Black women and gender non-binary folks, and we'll be showing folks how to ride their bikes to the grocery store. So it's a workshop, and you can learn more about that on Instagram.
Black and brown.
Black, brown, and indigenous, women, cis and
Would all
trans,
be
and gender non-binary
welcome.
folks.
Okay.
And we do
Yeah.
that intentionally, even though it's a lot to say every time, because
Sure.
sometimes white folks just show up to spaces.
No, you need to
where,
let people know. Right.
Yeah. So, and
It's
we
important.
do want to shout out, though, all of our allies who support us in this work, because the reality is a lot of the allies that do support us do have a lot of resources and time and energy that sometimes, unfortunately, because of the way the system is set up, that like Black and brown people just don't have, and that's okay, and that's totally okay. So shout out to the allies that support us in this work. And what I was about to say, I think that's really it. Yeah, just look out for all the work the Fair Fines and Fees Coalition is going to be doing,
Right.
and Color Girls Bike Too. Shayna, do you want to shout out Our Mommy Village and what you guys are up to?
I do.
Well,
Can she do it real
1 minute.
quick?
It has to be very quick.
Okay. All right. Our Mommy Village is having a wellness event for the postpartum recovery space in the summer, and it is on the 24th at 1 o'clock. Please show up. 289
What
Summer.
month?
April 24th
April
from 1 to
24th.
4
Okay.
at 289 Summer. We will have a wellness event that is going to literally help the postpartum recovery space this summer.
Great. Very, very good.
Thank you.
Well, I
Thank
want
you.
to say I'm very grateful to both of you for coming. I'm grateful to Noah and
Naila.
Naila, thanks for coming. Noah.
She's in her phone.
Yep, we're grateful.
And I need to use the
And
bathroom.
Shay and Jalonda. We can't
Chantel
thank you
Douglas,
enough.
too.
Yes,
Yep.
Johnny.
And all the great people at Fair Fines and Fees Coalition,
Yes,
Color Girls
absolutely.
Bike Too, and all the other people. Well, there's a lot of work to do, but we
Yes.
are doing it. And so I'm just very grateful to you all. So this is Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love.
Right.
Thank you very much. Yes,
Nice.
we did it.
Thank
We
you.
did it. We
Nice.
did it. We did it. Yep.
Okay, Mr. Richards can tell you where to go. Yes, it was very good. I was in my feelings, honey. I started talking about listen, because
Give us the money.
it means a lot knowing that my grandmother, who is the most important person to me, died thinking she wasn't shit. Can you go to the bathroom, please?
Are you staying for another interview? Do you have another interview?
Yeah, we have another
Hi.
show.
Oh, Wakanda.
Hey.
Okay.
How are you?
Hey. Yeah, no, you need each other. Murray, Anthony, or Ace. You go by Ace too, right? Ace and 6. He goes by 6 too.
Hey, how are you?
I hear y'all talking about resources.
Oh, absolutely.
You know
Oh, yes.
somebody here.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
get out of your
yes,
phone
you
now.
know
You're done.
somebody else here.
All right.
Yeah, no, you're
So you have a
not-
problem with
you're
resources,
having
huh?
Wakanda.
Yeah, I think a lot of Black organizations do.
They
Like
are.
grant
That's
writers?
what the data says.
I am,
Thanks for
well, she and I are
doing our
both,
own grant
yeah, but then we have, I work with moms.
Thanks
Yeah.
for being on
Moms
the
and
show.
babies right now.
You were on the
Well, I run
show.
an organization called Stop Violence Coalition.
Okay.
Or
Our Mommy Village.
Mommy Village.
Our Mommy
Our
Village.
mommy village.
Our
Yes.
Mommy Village.
Our mommy village,
We
yeah.
bring in
So
health.
Your wife would like that name.
I have a
What's her-
TV show. You want to come on my show?
Absolutely. Give me your